Hey guys, welcome to the 4th episode of my object series. In this series, we will be detailing strange. And so strange objects are kind of ones that don't fall into the other categories. They're different, they don't really have loops, they're not spheres, they're not boxes, they're not common objects you find. And so this episode is kind of how you account for those, how you make mechanisms that can do a lot of different things. And one of the strange game pieces is this dispenser. And if you don't know this mission, it's located right here. And what you have to do is you have to drive up to it. You have to click these little yellow handles. It might be difficult to see, but these little yellow handles on the side of it. Pull them forward to get the food out. Push them back. Pull them forward again to get another piece of food. Push them back. And then you have to place them inside these circles. But enough about that. Let's look at some mechanisms that could be used for this sort of strange mission that there's not a lot of. The first one, it kind of pertains directly to them getting the food, and it's called a lock pull. And it might be a little cryptic for my drawing, but let me explain how this works. Basically, you have an L bracket right here on top of a long pole right here. And right here, there is an axle. And so the L bracket is pinned, freely pinned in the long piece. So it can spin, it can move this way, it can move this way, it can kind of rotate around the point right here where it is pinned. But since it has this piece right here sticking up, it can't get past this axle. It can't do it. But it can rotate this way. So this part at the bottom can go up, but because it won't be blocked by the axle. And so the good part about that is that the lock can only rotate one direction. It can let things get in, but once it hits this and stops. And so it can't rotate past it and get out. And so that's really useful if you need to grab the handle, because the handle, when it pushes against it, will rotate it like this, get let in, then gravity will pull this back down, and then once the handle pushes out, as though you were backing up the robot, the top part will hit this axle, and it can't move, and so you'll have some pulling power and be able to pull the handle. That's just one way. Let's see how we make it. It's very simple. All you need is 1 to 2 angle brackets, depending on how many you want to have on your axle. You need 2 straight pieces right here, and that's just to hold the angle bracket in place and the axle. Other than that, it's very simple. No electronics, no motors, no nothing. It's very simple and very effective. You might have a problem with getting the game piece out, though, because it is so effective. Since this can't open, by definition, by design, you'll have to rotate the piece out or figure out some other way of getting it out of the reach of this angle bracket. So the next one is really cool. It's a little more complicated. It's called the claw. And it's very self-explanatory. It's a claw, and this time we're introducing gears. And so gears are basically circles with spikes on them, and they mesh together. And as one rotates, it causes the other one to rotate in the other direction. So if one gear is rotating like this, it will cause the other gear to rotate like this. And you can kind of see how these gear parts mesh to kind of pull down on each other, causing this rotation. And the cool part about this is as one rotates this way and the other rotates this way, these two top parts will come together. And they can come down on virtually any game piece that is, smaller than this width right here. It's very nice, very convenient. All you have to do is spin a motor. And so if you spin the motor forwards like this, it will close. And if you spin the motor the other way, it will open. Really easy for grabbing game pieces, really versatile. You can grab many different types, and not too bad to program. You just have to tell the motor to go forward a certain rotation and backward a certain rotation. It doesn't require any gear ratios. The gears will be 1 to 1. That means that the gears are the same size. They have the same amount of teeth. And so what this mechanism requires is 2 gears, obviously. They have to mesh together. They have to be the same size as well. One motor right here, and then four four straight pieces. Two of them have to be connecting the gears together to hold them together. Then two of them have to be the arms. And these things right here can really be anything. They can be a Lego brick, they can be a felt tip, they can be really anything that kind of causes friction between the object, whatever it may be, and the smooth Lego pieces, something that has friction. You can ask your teacher about friction. The next one is actually kind of really cool. It's a forklift. And so let me explain how this one works. So basically you have one straight piece here kind of cemented in place. It has to stay vertical. And it is connected freely to two other straight pieces right here and right here. And these two straight pieces are connected up here. And so what that does is it kind of makes sure that this straight piece and this straight piece are always vertical. And it may take some experimentation to sort of find this out, but if these two straight pieces are the exact same length, this and this will always be perpendicular from the ground. And what that means is that if you have some sort of basket attached on this side, this will always face the upwards direction. Always. Very cool. And so, if it's like this, the two straight pieces can lift up, raising this box up, and then if you move them down, like this, the basket will get on the floor. And so let's say, you have a ball and it drops into the basket and you need to be able to raise it up. Well, you can have the ball drop into the basket and then you can activate the motor. And so now let me explain how the motor works. Basically, the motor is attached rigidly to one of these axles. And rigidly attached means that every time the motor moves, that axle also moves. So if the motor moves in this direction, then the axle also moves in this direction. Let me clear up the screen a bit. To just state it again, as if the motor rotates this way, the axle rotates this way, this axle or this axle in the pictures. And then that axle is loosely bound right here and here to another axle that is also loosely bound to the forklift. And so as the motor rotates this way, it pulls on this axle, which also pulls on this axle. And as that axle pulls, it pulls up the forklift. Because if you remember, this piece can't move. It's rigidly in place. So as this axle pulls forward, the basket has to go up. That's the only direction it can move. And then if you clear the screen a bit, rotate it the other way, as seen in this picture over here, if you rotate it the other way, then the axle moves this way, pushing this axle down towards it, forcing the basket to go down. A little more complicated of a mechanism, takes a little more mechanical knowledge, but not too hard at all. All it takes is 8 straight pieces. As you can see, there's there is 1, 2, 8 in both pictures. And then just one motor. And of course, this motor takes programming that you have to connect to the Robo brain. But we'll cover programming in a different series. Mechanics is very complicated, and there's not always a clear solution to any of the problems. But if you keep watching and keep creating, I'm sure you'll make great inventions.